So here's a good and interesting example of a lead vocal that has a little bit of an effect on it, but then also they luckily gave me the effect separate. I asked for that too. Sometimes the effect that they use is so unique that I don't need to change or recreate it. It might be spring reverb that they only have, or etc. like that. I just ask for it, whatever. In the end, to us as engineers, these are just audio files, right? Like, theoretically, what's so much of a difference between this vocal or the vocal return? It's just an audio file. So can I have it separately? It helps me to get a better blend, etc. I can do my own processing, but it's not like it has to be this or it has to be that. It's kind of part of the beauty of this music thing that everybody does it a little bit different, and actually you learn a little different thing from everybody who sends you files. Again, stereo files because, well, stems, right? But it doesn't matter to us because we're working mostly, and actually at this point, definitely on vocals, exclusively in the box, because it doesn't matter to me if I plug in a stereo compressor or a mono compressor. It doesn't have to be mono. It used to be that it has to be mono because I just have only one CL1B. But that's not the case anymore. So it doesn't really matter that much. So there's even like software that splits fake stereo files that are really mono into mono, and I'm like, that's cool. And if you want that, that's cool, great. I don't care.
I don't mind watching the clouds roll by.
Let's leave that. You hear this little delay that's actually printed on there. So let me turn off every send that I have.
I don't mind watching the clouds roll by.
But it's like a cool, like ducked, almost reverb delay. I could not recreate that without some tips. So I mean, why not give it to me like that? And then I said, like, hey, give me that separately, the more prominent effect that sound like this. Check this out.
I don't mind watching the clouds roll by.
Even like a little throw, basically, where it gets hot. And then together, it's like this.
I don't mind watching the clouds roll by. I fantasize.
And that's cool. That's a cool vibe that I should not touch, except for, and the word is enhance. Let's put it in a little space. I do like the Buckram, which is it's the 480L here. Boom. Let's turn it up. I also endorse them, so I always have to say, like, A, I like that stuff. That's why I use it, and B, they like me. And I wanted to say that. So the Buckram is kind of like, it's similar to the plate, but it has a different envelope somehow. It's kind of faster and shorter. It's kind of like somewhere between a plate and a short ambience. So it's fresh. I like it. So this gives me a little bit of an extra space around the vocal that actually sounds like, even if I had gotten a fully dry vocal, it would now be in a space. Let's try that one more time.
I don't mind watching the clouds roll by.
And now we're getting to like the little magic kind of sound of, this sounds like a record. It sounds bright. It sounds like it has some kind of, I hate the word, but expensiveness to it, so to speak. That's why it's there. This fat ambience, you won't hear the difference much. It's like a little ambient that sets the vocal effect back a little bit. I mean, it's very subtle. I'll play you a tiny bit, but if you don't notice the difference, I won't blame you, but I use it.
I don't mind watching the clouds roll by.
But depth to me comes from slight ambiences behind specific instruments, or the other way around, actually, on every instrument, but specific different ambiences that push it back and forth a little bit. So this one makes it step back just a tiny bit, and that's a good thing. That gives it a little bit more front to back kind of panning. Step one way, one moment out of the way of the lead vocal, and that's why it's on there. And I'll give you some concept of why the vocal is mixed this way. Let's turn it all off. I always strive for something where, of course, I don't have any control over how people track their vocal or what they did to it so far. And some of it is good, and some of it is bad. But that could be, let's say you have a session, you put the cool 87 and the 1073, you use an 1176 or whatever, and you compress it and you record it. And that might now be compressed too much or too little or whatever, depending on the song and your skill level, of course. But I have absolutely no control over that. I have to take it from this point. So for me, I always try to like re-engineer what was done closer to what I would have done had I been the tracking person at that day.
I go smelling like Caberton.
Hi there, I'm Richard Furch, and I'm very excited for my new mixing masterclass with Pro Mix Academy. We're featuring indie pop Liman, my good friends Jason and Rand, and they have let us look into 2 of their songs, one of which will include the multitracks for you to practice with. We'll go deep dive into templates, gain staging, making loud records, and enhancing stems into a new emotional mix. I'm gonna go into a bunch of techniques I use on the daily that I know will help you too in your quest to better music every day. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. We're gonna have a blast, and let's go. Check it out.
It's on my way to outer space.
First thing for me almost always is some kind of EQ with a roll off and a very quick fix, like, hey, I think this is a little too too thin. So that's why this EQ is here. Let's see if we can hear that.
I don't mind.
It's just this much, and then turn it up.
I don't mind.
You give a little bit more of that weight of the bottom of the singer, and then of course my favorite, I have to cut it off because there's probably rumbles in there and all that stuff. This, by the way, all the vocals are going to all Vox, which I do always have like a tiny bit of a lift here, like what is it, 12K at 2, because this is maybe the only thing in the template where I'm like, I always do that or whatever, because we are always looking for something that is just a tiny bit more fresh in your face, kind of tiny bit of with brightening vocals most of the time. Very seldomly do we darken vocals. So there's a little extra 2 dB that are free, so to speak, built into my template. But I promise that's pretty much the only thing. Right after that, I have a little bit of a compression, and finally our favorite CL1B makes an appearance right here. Very, I can guarantee that this doesn't hit more than 1 dB.
I don't mind watching the clouds roll by.
Same thing. I kind of like the sound. It gives it a lean sound, and the compression is secondary to that sound. So I only need a little bit of 1 dB just to like engage the compressor in a way, but create that little satiny sound that it does. And I use Blue Cat Patchwork for this because this way I can actually, in one insert, also do parallel processing with this 1176. I use many for I might use the UAD one or the Waves one, and this one I use the T-Rex one, which they make great plugins, by the way. Don't sleep on them. This one will be super hit, like by, let's say, 10 dB probably. Let's see.
I don't mind watching the clouds roll by.
But that's a parallel process. You see the tube tech is going here full level, and the Black 76 going, less next to it, like kind of feathered into the sound a little bit. And that keeps the vocal a little bit more even though we don't have to like compress and step on it all the way from the top. That's why it's there. We can all put that into one plugin, which is nice. And, because I can, there's another SSL at the back to give me a little bit of a sound. There's harmonics in it, harmonics everywhere, but not harmonics. We're not tweaking the harmonics. We're just generating them here and there kind of stealthily. That's a good word. Perfect. And right then, okay, here comes super trick incoming. Okay, this is maybe of all the things that I am showing, short of, well, again, staging, haha. This is maybe one of my more interesting things, okay? So here's what we're gonna do. We want to, of course, we want to keep the vocal straight. That's important. But actually not just straight in a volume kind of way, but also in a spectrum kind of way. Like I kind of want it forward. I don't want to get I don't want syllables to get dark in between, even though they might have been performed that way. I want it more even. This is very often the goal of our mixing anyway. And sometimes we do that with volume rights like these here. And sometimes we need to help it with some processors. But for this matter, I do like something like this where I kind of have the upper mid-range boosted, but while it's actually playing most of the time, like full level coming in at as by the voice, this is probably somewhere around 0. So it's not really an EQ, but in between, when it falls down between the under the threshold, it goes actually back up, which means it kind of fills in that frequency kind of hole that happens when you sing less intense and it becomes darker for a moment. So check that out. The top is similar to that, like a little bit more push on the high end. But if I just did that, I could just also just use a high-end EQ. But this will all dance around the vocal so that most of the syllables stay mostly clear. And that's a dance, and that has to normally be tweaked, automated, and actually basically, you know, changed by verse and chorus, bridge, etc. But I think it's worth it. So check this out.
I don't mind watching the clouds roll by.
And now without that.
I don't mind watching the clouds roll by.
Especially here, watching the is too dark. You can hear that.
Watching the clouds.
And then when you turn it back on,
watching the clouds roll by.
It becomes even, and especially on a vocal that is relatively evenly performed. Right here, this is it's kind of what was intended, but was not fully performed this way. No slight to the singer. They did a great job, but this helps. And then when you do things like that, you actually EQ and can be relatively minimal. I mean, there's nothing again on the SSL, but there's just a tiny bit on the Pro Q. So another one of those things, like I'm not always doing this and that and the other on the vocal. It's just like, what does the vocal need? The vocal was recorded with some air on it. I don't need to add the air or add just a little bit of air. That's the most important part in all of this. Like we should not take away recipes to do on every single thing. We should always take away from it, do only what is needed and what doesn't hurt, so to speak. Do the least harm. I like that. And like enhance. One more time together, you get like this very present vocal that with the reverb and the extra reverb print. That's a good example of how I would approach this.
I don't mind watching the clouds roll by. I fantasize